The title of my sermon this morning is Love Game. I'll be talking about attending love or heart of attending. I'd like to thank Dr. Ward for a sermon he gave on a speech that Dr. K delivered over the last summer, and I was very inspired by that content. And based on the inspiration, I've been thinking a lot about love, about heart over the years, and I was able to bring together some inspiration that I received. And I hope that you can really appreciate attending love. I believe we live in an age and era that is very different. You have to go beyond faith, you have to go beyond belief, and hopefully you will understand what I'm referring to. God as our Heavenly Parent is not a subjective partner of belief, but a being whom we relate to based on dependence. If a child says to his or her parents that I believe in you as my father or mother, his or her parents would feel disappointed or even angry. Do you think so? If a child comes up and says, I really believe that you exist. When your existence is clearly no question about it, I think that's really, that means you exist physically, but doesn't matter to your children, right? So, how does God feel if we say we believe in Him, and yet our life has nothing to do with Him? Right? That's essentially the situation God has been in for so many thousands of years. So this is an era that God wants us to invite Him into our life. We have to trust. Not only we want to invite Him, we want to have His perspective, His heart, her heart, in every day of our life. And Confucianism, I never had this perspective until I heard the case paper on this. Actually talks about attendance. But Confucianism, attendance is from object partner to subject partner. One direction as well. So when parents love the children respond in beauty, right? And the beauty from the children should be actually filial piety. Similarly, when husband loves wife, the wife responds in beauty. That beauty most wonderfully expressed by wife is fidelity. And when the king loves the citizens respond in beauty and loyalty. So you can see that the attendance basically is from object partner to subject partner. Now it's not surprising at this age that a country like Korea, which is probably more Confucianist than China, if you look at the youth today, you find that Confucianist values are no longer a stronghold or values for young people today, whether it's in Korea, in Japan, or in China. There must be a reason, right? Because true attendance is not just from object partner to subject partner. It should be also from subject partner to object partner. Don't you think so? So, it's unusual for us to think of God attending us as children. But we always think that we have to attend to God. We have to attend to parents. Right? What about two parents attending to us? Is there an attendance of two parents towards us? I believe so. So parents should attend children from the perspective of God, since the first and primary parent is God. We have to teach, guide, love, and attend our children from God's perspective. The same applies to husband and wife, elder and younger, siblings, teachers, and students, employer, and employee. So here we have the understanding that attendance is not just from object partner one direction to the subject partner, but actually subject partner should also attend object partner. Parents should attend children. God has been attending to us. Two parents have been attending to us. And that love, I would say, the heart of attendance is the attending love. And attending love is very different from sacrificial love. It's much higher level. And we are familiar with sacrificial love. Right? And when we are asked to give sacrificial love, always, it's very difficult because even after you give sacrificial love, you feel something is lacking. Even to a point that sometimes you can even feel resentful because you gave sacrificial love. And sacrificial love necessarily demands that you are the son. Right? But let's consider now attending love. Adam and Eve should have united in heart with God and completely trusting our Heavenly Parent. If they had done this, they would have inherited the same janma of God and would live their lives to give joy to God. They would never do anything to hurt God. You all know that. Right? That's the first blessing. And yet that's not the reality. Instead of us being a joy to God, we rebelled against God. We went against God. We chose to unite in heart with the archangel. We were deceived by the archangel. So this unity of heart with the archangel led to God suffer, to be hurt, to feel pain in the process of trying to love us. So God, we say, is a God of sorrow and God of tears. And this is from the Father on Sorrow and Tear, March 1st, 1978. God was supposed to be the master of joy. Because man brought the fall to God to earth, God was transformed into the master of sorrow. The God of joy was transformed into the God of sadness. He tasted the first sadness, and he was the first one in the universe to shed tears. Adam and Eve first felt pain and sorrow when we were chased out from the Garden of Eden. That day began the history of sadness. Last century, 20th century, is a century of what we call the death of God. With so much suffering. So many wars. Wars went on worldwide. We just celebrated the anniversary of Auschwitz. The memory of 6 million people being gassed to death. How to reconcile the understanding that God is a God of love with the suffering of this world? That was the challenge that religious people have to face, not only intellectuals, philosophers. The only way to reconcile this is that God must be suffering more than man. Right? So two parents talk about the suffering heart of God. This suffering heart of God is as though that we are condemned. That the only way we can have this deep relationship with God is through suffering. And nobody wants to experience God through suffering, do you? Yeah? But is that what we are called to do? To suffer so that we can experience love? We all want sweet love. In that song, love has to be sweet. And yet in reality, we also need tough love. What about bitter love? Can we turn bitter love into sweet love? Don't you think that that's what we're called to do? Well, let's come back to the original understanding of love and beauty. Heavenly Parent loves us, in spite of the fact that we ran against Him. It caused sorrow. It caused grief to God. Which means that from God's perspective, we say that attendance should be that we have to have this attendance based on God's perspective. Right? And one of the major, most serious problems of fallen nature is that we cannot see from God's perspective. So we keep saying we have to see from God's perspective. Right? But most of the time we can't see from God's perspective. We always see from our perspective. I'm reminded of last week, we walk in His steps. We walk in their steps. Right? We have to put ourselves in the shoes of God so that we can see God's perspective. But that's not easy to do, right? In reality, it's very difficult to do. So instead of beautiful sons and daughters of God, we have become beasts. And the most abominable creation of God. Instead of beauty, we respond with ugliness. We complain. I remember Mom said that she has to learn how not to complain. And you look at each one of us, we have complained almost every minute. Can you not complain in 3 minutes? In 3 days? Not so simple. We criticize. We always find reason to criticize. Not only when we criticize, we condemn, we crucify, we blame, we judge and condemn. And our state of mind is always somehow angry, resentful, hateful, and we have this violence against others and against ourselves. Jesus said, "You take them by force, men of violence." So, when we put in God's shoes and we feel God's heart, God looks at us as really beastly, despicable, abominable sons and daughters of God. We are the most ugly creation of God. That's the result of sin. And you know that God did not give up hope on man, right? He created the principle of restoration. Don't you think that's amazing? And when we are called to do that, are we called to have sweet love for our children? We are also called to do the same. To walk in God's steps. When our children rebel against us, don't we also feel the same heart of God? Or when our husband and wife, we can love with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul, and yet we can become beastly, abominable. And yet God will still love us in spite of that. Right? So what's that love? I call it tending. That's the love that true parents constantly is trying to encourage us to have that kind of heart to love with tenderness. And these are the words of true parents. In the Computer Testament age and the life of attendance, the way for young people, this is the victory of love that God, true parents want to give to us, bequeath to us, so that we can inherit this. And when we can inherit this, according to the Father, true parents, Satan will depart from us. The fallen age is the age of Satan's dominion. Adam did not attain faith, deeds, and attendance. These were the three major conditions for Adam. The three ages. Old Testament of deeds, of obedience. The New Testament of faith, belief, and the completed testament of attendance, right? So, thus Adam could not go through the Old Testament age of deeds, the New Testament age of faith, and the completed testament age of attendance. It is because we cannot separate good from evil without righteousness. What is the standard of righteousness? It is always God. So we have to believe, behave, and attend as God does. Why should we do it? It is because Satan cannot accuse those who are righteous like God. When you deal with your environment in the same way that God believes, behaves, and attends, Satan cannot accuse you. And Satan will be true. We are all familiar that Jesus had to contend with Satan when he was doing his 40 days fast. The three temptations. Right? Similarly, we have to contend with Satan. As much as we don't like to talk about Satan, Satan exists, it's a reality. So, if we have this tending love of God, of true parents, Satan has to be defeated. When we hear the divine principle of fall of man and we reveal the identity of Satan, in many ways, we are revealing the true deceiver, the true deceptor, right? the true criminal of mankind. And yet, constantly, still comes and control our lives. How can we defeat Satan? Not only defeat him, he has to leave. He has to leave completely, retreat. Let's look at salvation brought by Jesus Christ in his book. What did Jesus do that brought about spiritual salvation? According to the principle, he gained victory over Satan, a victory of which God can then resurrect him. But what is it that he do? Just because he's the Son of God, he could do that? No. It's because Jesus was abandoned by God. Which means what? Which means that Jesus had a living relationship with God every minute of his life. And yet at the most critical moment of his life, at the most difficult moment of his life, when everybody has abandoned him, from his parents, from his disciples, even God has abandoned him. Don't you think that's the most cruel thing that God could have done? And yet God has to do it. And Jesus could have felt totally resentful to his God. Totally hateful. And we believe it. And yet Jesus did not do that. He did not resent God. He did not hate God. But rather he demonstrated love. And his words, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That means Jesus in the position of Son of God, our Heavenly Parent, loved God in spite of the fact that he was the cruel God that abandoned him at the most critical point of his life. That is only love. Because he could do that, God could resurrect him. By resurrecting the crucified Jesus, God opened up a way of spiritual salvation, a way to a realm free from satanic invasion. And he could remain 40 days and complete his mission here in this specific world and brought spiritual salvation. This means that Jesus tended God in spite of the fact that God abandoned him. While Jesus was on earth, he could not substantialize this love of God, this attending love of God, this part of attendance of God, substantially in this physical world. He could not substantialize it. And because of that, because of his victory, God could resurrect Jesus, and that brought about spiritual salvation. Right? And we can feel God when we go for Sunday service. We can feel that we are brothers and sisters. However, when we walked out of Sunday service, a different reality dawned, descended upon us. Right? We cannot substantialize God's love, God's heart. Why? Because Jesus could not substantialize God's attending heart of love in his physical life. He could not stand in the position as the Messiah of all mankind. In this sense, we can say that true father and true mother must have gone beyond sacrificial love. I'm always reminded of this verse, or this, what Jesus said to us. If someone slapped you on one cheek, turn to them the others also. Offer the other cheek. I thought, wow, isn't Jesus encouraging violence for others to take advantage of us? Yeah? I thought about this, and I think that Jesus is not referring to, here again, you always associate, love your enemy. What happens if your enemy is your loved one? Is your daughter? Is your honey? Is your children? Is your elder brother or elder sister? So, slapping on the cheek, white cheek. I think Jesus is not talking about this physical pain. Something much more than physical pain. The hurt and pain that we feel in our heart, I think he is referring to. White cheek. Cheek is dignity. Wilson talks a lot about saving face. Yeah? So when someone does something where your dignity is trashed, when they don't show you respect, when it hurts in your heart, can you offer your other cheek? It could be your son and daughter, it could be your husband or wife, it could even be God. So that's the meaning of offering your other cheek. Family level. Ham was put in a situation where he saw his naked father, drunken. According to what I understand, God made Noah. He sought to alcohol, and then he was naked and fell asleep. And Ham was put in a situation where if his heart is a heart of concern, he can overlook his naked father, overlook all the mistakes, because he saved their family. Ham could in some way have demonstrated attending love, not just obedience. But instead what happens? He called his two brothers, and covered his naked father. Right? And we know that the father, Noah, woke up and the curse of Ham fell upon him. Then in Abraham's family, God told Abraham that his descendants will number like the stars, number like the sand. And God demanded, offer your only son. Right? So Abraham offered his son. Really? Out of obedience or really out of attending love? was, we know it's definitely obedience. Right? If he had offered Isaac out of obedience, I think he would have been very resentful after that. Don't you think so? What about Isaac? Isaac was old enough to know what was going on. He asked his father, where is the offering to be made? And Abraham said, Isaac, God will take care of it. And Abraham bind him. Right? In fact, he allowed himself to be tied up. Did Isaac demonstrate a temperament? Or did he do it out of obedience again? But the result is what? No sacrifice was needed. Jesus' life was sacrificed. There was no way. God could have saved him, but his physical life, there is no way that God could save him. He was offered as a ransom. But in this case, where there's some level of attendance, the life of Isaac was spared. Very different. Sacrificial love. Another verse that troubles all of us very much is, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Very contradictory. I don't know how you interpret it, but I would like to interpret it in terms of if we can offer a life willing to put ourselves in a position of hurt and pain, in spite of the fact we try to love, in spite of the fact we try to receive love, and yet we experience hurt and pain in the process, and yet still attend at the heart of attendance, we may lose our life peacefully. At that moment, we gain our life. But this is the age of which we don't need to sacrifice. It's the life. If we have to in the heart. And that is the model. That is the foundation laid by his parents. I refer to the 3 tests that young Wee Kim spoke about, that Father went through. And because of the 3 tests, Father gained victory of love. And this was after the failure of the person who was called, who started the Inside Valley Church. The Father passed a message to ask her to deny everything that was revealed to her. And then she was released. Father was in the same prison for her being, but she refused. And because of that, Father was tortured almost to death and thrown out to die. And because of his failure, that Father has taken his 3 tests. The first was with Mrs. Park, called the wife of God for some reason. And Father has served her again the 8 stages, from servant of servant, servant, and all, right up to God. So then she recognized Father as the Prime Minister of God's kingdom. Then she said, you are like Jesus. And finally, man of God, substantial object. How could Father make such a lady, make such proclamation of the Father and in love? The next test was the 43 days he fought with in terms of truth. And Father mentioned 3 main truth of God. Change your blood image, you need to change blood image, you need to change your heart, and you need to change ownership. This is a spiritual battle with God, even abandoned him and went against true Father. And for this, he gained the seal of God. Again, God went against God. And I think the most amazing is we hear, we witness, we teach divine principle. The Father could gain 12 disciples in Helena, the most terrible camp imaginable. Communist concentration camp. And he gained 12 disciples without teaching divine principle. How could he have done it? And we heard that. So the only way I think that it's possible for that is that true Father must have demonstrated God's attending love, absolute attending love. He loved the torture, whether it is in Japan or whether it is in Korea, concentration camp. And the torture that Father received is not simple torture. That he has to love his torture. That kind of heart. And then finally, he was able to establish Education Institute and Ancestral Liberation in Korea when Satan surrendered on March 21st, 1999. I thought about this. When we have a Cain heart, archangel heart, how can we resolve our Cain heart? If someone come and give us divine principle, do you think it will help? I think it will make it worse. Right? When someone is lacking in love, truth doesn't help. Truth only makes it more problematic. To the point where the person has even more resentment and hate, and will kill you in the process. Right? So for Father to be able to not only speak the truth, but able to make Satan surrender. Which means that victory must have come with the heart of God, handing him up. That's the only way for Satan to surrender. So if Satan has surrendered, don't you think that we too, if we demonstrate this, live our lives based on this attending love, we can even ask Satan to come. Or rather, we don't even have to ask. Satan will come. We'll retreat. I will now share. We talk about Cain and Abel, we talk about Esau and Jacob. And now that we live in the era of tomorrow, don't you think we should talk a little bit about two sisters that actually was victorious in heart, that demonstrated in many ways some level of attending heart of God. Leah and Esau. Rebekah, which is the wife of Jacob and Laban, their brothers, I believe, sent letters to each other, settling among themselves that Esau would marry Leah, while Jacob would take Rachel as a wife. So both of them betrothed to one another. Leah would ask, what does the older one do? He told her, she is an evil person, a highway robber. She continued to ask, what does the younger one do? She was told that he was a mild man who stayed in camp. And Leah, because she was betrothed to Esau, cried until her eyelashes dropped. She doesn't have very bright eyes, because she always was crying. The Talmud says that Rachel revealed to Leah the secret signs which she and Jacob had devised to identify the veiled bride, because they both suspected Laban would pull such a trick. Jacob is aware of Laban's deception and even tries to protect himself from it, but his plan is frustrated by Rachel's compassion for her sister. Isn't that amazing? Did not your father call you Esau? That's referring to Jacob, because Jacob deceived his brother Esau and deceived his father, and received the blessing from his father. Right? And this is Leah in response to Jacob. And you answered, you too call me Rachel. So at the time of the marriage, the bride, I understand, must be there. Right? So there was some kind of understanding given by Rachel to Jacob that, they knew that the father suspected that the father would trick them, but they made some agreement. You call me and I'll answer back. But here, Rachel felt compassion for her sister and told her that this is the understanding, that you also must respond when Jacob asked for Rachel, which she did. And so Jacob thought that it was Rachel that he married. So Jacob was cognizant of her acts of deception and wanted to divorce her. She was unloved, and not only by her husband. Everyone sneered at her. When God saw that Leah was unloved, he said, how shall I make her beloved of her husband? This is God intervening. Now I give her children first, so that her husband will love her, thus I make her stand straight. And she bore Jacob 4 sons. And 4 sons, Judah. Okay? Became the ancestors of Judah. Isn't that amazing? And she praised God. Leah was the first one to praise God, according to the Bible. God was not praised by anyone until Leah came and said, this time I will praise the Lord. So even though Jacob loved Rachel, but God blessed Leah. And Leah offered sons to Jacob. And the rivalry between the 2 sisters, elder sister and younger sister, is not the same as the rivalry of Cain and Abel. They knew that Jacob will be, the father of the whole nation. The blessed descendants of the chosen people of God. So each woman continually questioned whether she was doing enough in her personal efforts towards increased spirituality, and would use the other example to spur herself on. Rachel envied Leah's tearful prayer, by which she merited to marry Jacob and bear 6 of his 12 sons. She gave 4 sons to Jacob, and then she offered her maid, and the maid offered 2 sons. And the maid turns out to be a half-sister. But she particularly felt for Rachel, because Rachel arranged for her to be married to Jacob. And in response to the love that she has towards her, she prayed to God on behalf of her sister. She requested, turn what is in my womb to a female, and do not prevent my sister Rachel from bearing a son. Here you have a situation where 2 women shared one husband. In the fall, you have Eve being shared with 2 men, so-called 2 men, one masculine archangel and Adam. In restoration, You have women willing to share one husband. That's restoration. But not just restoration of memory, but this is a demonstration of love. Can we love in some kind, don't you think so? That's the foundation. I was talking to one guest yesterday, he's a Muslim, talked about the Palestinian problem, the Arabs and Israel, still in the midst of war, and bloodshed. Think about it. If Hagar and Sarah, Hagar was given as a maidservant to Abraham because Sarah was barren. And through that, Ishmael was born. Then later on, God blessed Abraham and Sarah with his son Isaac. If Ishmael and Isaac had grew up in the same family of Abraham, don't you think that there would be unity between the descendants of Ishmael and Isaac? Even though we know from principle it was Jacob and Esau that restored the foundation of faith and substance and foundation of Messiah. Right? But what happened? Sarah drove Hagar out of the household of Abraham. If the two women, Hagar is from Egypt, not even chosen people status, but she gave birth to the first son of Abraham. If the two women had lived together and loved Jacob, and Sarah loving Hagar, the situation would be different. The same can be said of the relationship between Mother Mary and Elizabeth. When Mary entered the household of Zachariah, she was 6 months pregnant with John the Baptist. And when Mary came in, the baby leaped in the womb. And she testified. Why is it that Mother Mary did not stay in the household of Zachariah at the time of birth of John the Baptist? Again, if the two women loved one and lived in the household of Zachariah, it would be a very different situation between John the Baptist and Jesus. When you look at all this, what is asked of the two women of Leah and Rachel, which they demonstrated, was a very love of some kind, not just out of obedience, which if repeated in Hagar and Sarah, and then in the house of Zachariah, between Elizabeth and Mary, God's restoration history will be very, very different. Very, very different. December 21st, 2014, these words: we are living beyond the completed Testament age in the era of Chungkuk. We share that with the world by bringing others out of the Old and New Testament age. True mothers always talk about Tamuni, about God's preparation of her lineage. Right? Why? If you look at true Father, Father always proclaimed that He is Lord of the second advent. Doesn't matter with what crowd. he would proclaim after a certain foundation. Sometimes you wonder, is it asking too much? Now, that's the truth of all God's restoration history. They are doing this because that is God's work, the fruit of God's effort over thousands and thousands of years. And she's just reminding us God's attending love, that true parents can be born in this physical world. If you look at true mother's life, I think you can see many, many instances, if your eyes are willing to see, if your ears are willing to hear. Many, many examples of tending love to heavenly parent, to father, to family, and always tending love. Aren't we living at a time when true mother is at the most, being challenged most by her own children? Isn't she demonstrating amazing tending love of God and heavenly parent? I believe we live at a time when we should go beyond the foundation of the inside. We have to live now. We talk about the foundation to receive heaven. We have to go beyond the middle. We have to talk about the foundation of heart. Foundation to receive true parents. To receive heavenly parents attending, heart of attending, heart of love. It doesn't matter whether we are 40 years in the church, 10 years in the church, 1 year in the church. If we will not respond to this age, the age of which we are supposed to be the embodiment of true parents' love, of heavenly parents' love, which the Bible prophesies that we will be sons and daughters of God, the revealings of the sons and daughters of God. We are the sons and daughters. One day, North and South Korea will unite, and our fatherland will be one again. Many times I go to the meeting and father will say, once North and South Korea unite, then what? Then what? What about money and God? What will say? What about having this living presence of God's heart and love in us? We have to go beyond sweet love, go beyond tough love, into the era of tenderness. We have to go beyond the age of obedience, beyond faith, because we are living in a new era. Era of Chomukku. It's not as though we can have this understanding, as a manual to become a perfected son and daughter of God. You can't do that. Only through true parents. That's why we need true parents. And they have lived a life, exemplary life, going beyond the foundation of Jesus. They have substantialized God's love in their life, in their family. And this is a time we have to testify to them that we have to be not just faith because we believe in something, but the reality is completely opposite. We have to go beyond faith. And only when we do that, I believe God can do amazing miracles. But if you're still clinging on to the past, you cannot continue to live, try to survive. We have to go beyond. But we have to transcend our past. And three parents have offered us, and offered a way for us to, through their exemplary life. We know Jesus said to love our enemies. How difficult it is, right? We know we have to separate from Satan. We know we have to make Satan retreat. How can we make Satan retreat? Accept that this is a life. There's no other way. The Father many times, leaders meeting, Father said, if you have found another way, faster way, now follow me. And I think that the way that our two parents have paved and have bequeathed to us is the only way. And I believe that if we follow that way, Satan will retreat. Satan will really surrender. So if we take Father's words, substantialize, at least change our understanding, we begin to inherit this heart of our true parents and true love, especially at the beginning of this time. I believe we can have true love. I end with the video, The Crown of Glory, written by his parents as a poem when he was 16 years old. That's a crown of glory that God and true parents want to give to us. The crown of glory.